The chime of the bell above the door echoed through the small convenience store as Jamal stepped inside, shaking off the cold. It was a quiet afternoon, and the store was mostly empty. He had stopped by to pick up some supplies, just a few snacks and toiletries before heading home to enjoy his weekend. Jamal, a U.S. Marine who had recently returned from overseas, was looking forward to some well earned rest. But as he browsed the shelves, he couldn't help but notice the store manager watching him. The man, an older Chinese gentleman, had a suspicious look in his eyes. Jamal had seen that look before, countless times. It was the look that said, "You don't belong here." He sighed inwardly, but decided to ignore it. He was used to being judged by the color of his skin. The manager followed him at a distance, pretending to rearrange items on the shelves, but his eyes never left Jamal. Jamal could feel the weight of the man's gaze, and it irritated him. He had done nothing wrong, but he knew how it looked. A tall, muscular black man in a hoodie browsing a store alone. It didn't seem to matter that he was a decorated Marine or that he had put his life on the line for his country. To some people, he was just a potential threat. As Jamal moved to the back of the store, he noticed a group of three young white men entering. They were loud, laughing amongst themselves as they headed toward the front counter. The store manager glanced at them but didn't pay much attention to them. Instead, he kept his focus on Jamal, his eyes narrowing with suspicion as Jamal picked up a bottle of water. Jamal was about to head to the counter to pay when he heard it. A chilling, commanding voice. "Everyone, stay where you are! Hands up!" Jamal turned just in time to see one of the young men pulled out a gun and pointed at the cashier. The other two men moved quickly, one standing guard at the entrance while the other walked behind the counter, demanding that the cashier empty the register. Jamal turned in time just to see one of the young men pulled out a gun and pointed at the cashier. The other two men moved quickly, one standing guard at the entrance while the other walked behind the counter, demanding that the cashier empty the register. Panic filled the small store. The cashier, a young woman, trembled as she fumbled with the register, her hands shaking uncontrollably. The store manager, who had been so focused on Jamal, froze, his face going pale. He didn't know what to do. His eyes darted to Jamal, and for a brief moment, their gazes met. Jamal could see the fear there, the fear that was now no longer about him, but about the very real threat unfolding in front of them. Without hesitation, Jamal acted. He moved swiftly, silently, using the skills he had honed through years of training. He approached the man standing guard at the entrance, his steps quiet as a shadow. Before the man could react, Jamal grabbed his wrist, twisting it with a precision that forced the gun from his hand. The man let out a yelp of pain, but Jamal was already moving, disarming him and knocking him to the ground. The commotion caught the attention of the man behind the counter. He turned, his eyes widening in shock as he saw Jamal advancing. The would-be robber raised his gun, but Jamal was faster. He lunged forward, using a well-practiced martial arts move to disarm him and send him sprawling. The third man, seeing his friends taken down, hesitated for a moment before making a run for the door, but Jamal was already there, blocking his path. With a swift movement, he subdued the man, holding him down until the cashier managed to hit the panic button. The store was filled with a stunned silence as the reality of what had just happened sank in. The cashier was in tears, her hands covering her mouth as she stared at Jamal in disbelief. The store manager, who had watched the entire scene unfold, looked at Jamal with a mixture of shock and shame. Moments later, the sound of police sirens filled the air. and officers rushed into the store, taking the three men into custody. Jamal stepped back, his breathing steady as he watched the officers lead the would-be robbers away. The store manager approached Jamal, his face flushed. He looked down, unable to meet Jamal's eyes. I'm sorry, he stammered. I thought you were. Jamal gave him a small, tired smile. I know what you thought, he said, his voice calm. But not everyone is what they seem. The manager nodded, his eyes finally meeting Jamal's. There was regret there, and something else, gratitude. Thank you, he said, his voice barely a whisper. You saved us. Jamal nodded. Just doing what needed to be done, he replied. He paid for his items, the cashier still too shaken to speak, and made his way out of the store. As he stepped back into the cold afternoon, Jamal couldn't help but feel a sense of sadness. He was glad he could help, glad that no one had been hurt, but he knew that the next time he walked into a store, he might face the same judgment all over again. It was a reality he had come to accept, but today, at least, he had shown that there was more to him than what others saw. And maybe, just maybe, the store manager would think twice before making assumptions about someone else.